roll call. Is that where we start? I think.
I'm just going to keep this on, Chris. So Councilmember Such
Here.
and Councilmember Garaventa is absent at this moment. Committee Member Coleman.
Here.
Committee Member Duez.
Here.
Committee Member Morales.
Here.
And Committee Member Toon. And she is absent at this moment.
Yeah, I don't, she's in Mexico. Do you know that?
Yes, she sent an email out.
Okay. Okay. Public comment. The public may address the committee on any item of public interest, not otherwise on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken. Matters to be addressed will be placed on a subsequent meeting agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes.
So at this time, if you have a public comment, please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature. I don't see anybody on the phone system, so I will let the speakers know in order that they appear, and then Chris Gorski will unmute you. So at this moment, public comment from Megan Mills.
Hi, Megan.
Hello. Hi, I'm trying to start my video, but for some reason it's not. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hi. Thank you for taking this public comment. First, I would like to say thank you and celebrate the fact that there was the workshop last meeting. And a suggestion that if they are held in the future to please consider that they are held as a...
Megan, this item is actually agendized on old business. So any comments concerning the workshop need to be held until that item is held.
Okay, I'll move on to the second concern. I suggest that this committee be made more accessible to members of the public by having it meet after 5 p.m. and for longer than 1 hour. This meeting time and this meeting duration excludes many, many people who would otherwise be involved. So I suggest that again, that it consider to be moved to a later time and for longer. And then we'd like to reiterate the critical need for training on implicit bias and systemic racism for all public employees and staff, as well as members of the community. And then I would just like to make a statement here in support of the Black community, Black mothers and parents of Black children, because yet again, another 20-year-old unarmed Black man has been killed by the police in Minnesota. And this is a white people problem. This is not a Black people problem or limited to people who are directly affected by this violence. This violence exists in our community and in every community. And it is imperative that the community recognize this and do something about it. I just want to state here that I have never once given my son, who is now 21 years old, instructions not to wear a hoodie or to keep his hands visible at all times. I have never feared that he will be killed as a result of being pulled over by the police. And that is because he is white. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
So at this time, I don't see any other public comments. Karen, I know you had raised your hand. Did you still want to speak?
And my item is about the workshop as well.
Okay.
Okay, old businesses, discussion review of March 29th community workshop. Social equity starts with me. Any comments? I think Jim is walking in. Any comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this time, we're entertaining comments from the committee members.
Darren, do you have anything?
No.
No? Okay.
So one of the things I'd like to touch on was the interpretation of pronouns. A few of us used the word traditional there, and we got a lecture about how we use traditional meanings is somehow offensive to somebody. That's my opinion. I can state my opinion. If I think traditional is what I see, what I see you are, and I call you that, okay, but everyone wants to offend everyone by saying their opinion doesn't matter. That was simply our opinion. Traditional meaning for me was one thing. Then we get someone on here to try to correct me. That's not fair. Not at all. We'll skip that one. It's got a lot of, I'll come back to that. Wealth distribution. Some of that in there was wealth distribution. And I can't see it. Who were the trees? who grew them, who watered them, who put the money into that when it showed the two little girls on the ladder. Now I get inequalities. Inequalities are different than apple trees, whose property they on, those kind of things. Everyone wants to encompass so much stuff into social justice that we alienate the individual. That alienation is happening more and more and more. I had text messages from people that were really not on board with that. I thought this meeting, I would be mad if I paid for that. It was absolutely Sesame Street, like Sesame Street. Why didn't we have, I thought this was an open discussion to talk about scenarios and things and have real discussion. I felt like kindergarten was being taught. Now, do I think that what we did was wrong and waste time? No, we can have an honest, good, decent discussion about some of the stuff that happens here. I think most of the people on here want to have that, but I think that some of it was just absolutely, without saying it wrong, dumbed down to the least extent it could possibly be.
I mean, I entirely disagree with that. I think part of it, I mean, there are people in the challenge. So, I mean, it really was. Talk about terms that are.
I'm not sure if someone's speaking, but I can't hear anybody.
Oh, yeah,
Darren,
Colette.
sorry.
you have to go right into the mic and
No,
you have
it
to have
was-
your mic on.
It was me. It was me.
Oh, okay.
I
got
didn't, my mic wasn't on. I'm
I could hear
Remember-
Mr.
sorry.
Delay.
Sorry, Nathan.
No problem.
I mean, it was to address people who don't work in this, who aren't working in equity and just, I mean, that was part of it. I mean, it certainly I can see why one would feel like it was dumbed down, that you probably didn't learn a whole lot in that workshop.
Pretty sure the people that are on here are pretty well aware of social justice. I mean, the people that we had participated, commented, it wasn't necessary that there's a lot of things. I wrote a list of things that were just like, okay, let's really have a discussion. We always talk about having an honest and open, hard, difficult discussion. Let's have it. Some of the things I'm going to say people aren't going to like, some things they probably are. So let's get down to the nitty gritty.
I just, really quickly, Darren, I just have a quick comment. At which point, I felt like we spent a lot of time at the very end discussing. I was really vulnerable with my questions and I felt like I got really good feedback and ways from Lynn to handle that. But was there a time when you felt like you couldn't speak, or I'm just confused at the comment of not having the discussion, because the discussion at the end I thought was really vibrant and definitely happened. But
No, I agree with you there. I'm talking about the all encompassing of social equity. One of the main standpoints we had was talking about difficult conversations, and I haven't brought any up. Now, keep in mind that most of this stuff not even most, some of it's for me. Some of it was people texting me in the middle of this that were obviously didn't want to get on, didn't want to have reputation on here to say what they want when they want. Some people scared to do it. I have a illegal immigrant friend here that said we're all morons.
We're all what?
Morons. He said he's from Guatemala. People come here for prosperity. The generational gap that's been between his dad and him to his kids is so different. It's one of the alienated things we don't talk about. They're predominantly Hispanic family who are hardworking, ball-busting people, and the generations behind him don't. He's an older gentleman. He's sitting at my house right now watching this on my computer because he doesn't know how to work one and get on Zoom himself. But that's the kind of stuff we need to have conversations about. The disenfranchised is getting paperclipped to the lazy. There is real room for opportunity here. There is real room for stuff to get solved. But a lot of these people that are so disenfranchised that play off the race card, to play off the poverty card, are just plain out lazy.
so in relation to the workshop, I wish that your friend would join us. I'm glad that he has you to talk to and bounce ideas off of. And thank you for sharing that. My first thought is I'm so happy to hear that there's a person of color living here, that doesn't feel like there's an issue. I think that's very fortunate. And if anything, I think that workshop and some of the testimony that was shared, I agree with you, Darren. I think we need more of that and more sharing and more experiences for sure. But just as we all have seen in our individual lives, one person's experience doesn't speak for everyone. I think our task at hand is to acknowledge that there are issues that exist in our community. And just because you don't see them in your bubble does not mean that they're there. And so I'm not discrediting anyone's comments. I think you and I both from the beginning of this have been very good about meeting with people from all different backgrounds and all different experiences. From an equitable standpoint, I think the focus of this is to focus on those that do and have experienced racism and systems that are working against them. And
One of my questions.
I do feel like at the end that there was time at the workshop for us to discuss that, and I'm craving it more like you did.
One of the discussions I had was putting on here so that we can talk about the systematic racism that everyone keeps talking about, what system, where it is, and what's failing. But we haven't had that conversation yet either. I brought it up.
Well, we did at the last meeting because we decided as a group that we were going to write our resolution and then dive into policy after, right?
Well, that's not policy. I'm saying what systems are there? What checks and balances are falling through? People come to this country for prosperity. They wouldn't do it if they didn't get it.
So we're focusing on a local level, right? So
Correct.
after we have drafted our resolution, this is my understanding. I don't know systems that exist here in our city of Sonora for law enforcement and HR and all these things that these policies that we want to explore. That's part of that exploration process after our resolution is drafted. That's how but I'm in your boat. There's a lot that I don't know. It's part of the reason I wanted to be on this committee. But I'm under this understanding that that exploration happens after we set the standard in our resolution.
I completely understand that. Here's another very unpopular thing. I'm white. I'm assuming you're white. I know you're not. I'm assuming you're white. I'm assuming Nathan's white. We're all a bunch of white people making a bunch of hoopla. Why aren't we encompassing a lot more variety of people from here? Predominantly the poor, predominantly the rich, predominantly the Black. She is a Black husband. Why hasn't her husband been brought in here and had a conversation? Am I wrong?
I don't think it's appropriate that we start talking about each other's families. I think that we should stick to the workshop discussion.
That all ties in. I'm sorry, this was absolutely wealth distribution, because I grow an apple tree and I spend my water, I spend my money, I spend my time, I plant it, I do all that if somebody else, now I see if I'm not going to use it all, or if there's leftover, there's anything, there's a lot of different things, but the system that was portrayed to us was because I have, you get.
I'm sorry, because you have what?
Because I have, you deserve. That's wealth distribution in my mind. That is not the same as let's do it together. Hey, I'm all for if we both do it and we both seed, we both get the benefit. We both water, we both do all the time, we both get the benefit. I'm not for that. That's just one issue.
I don't think that the owner of that apple tree was in the picture. It
Right,
wasn't.
but that's the semantics of this whole conversation, that we paperclip everything together instead of taking the individual and actual facts together out of the scenario.
I just think the owner of the apple tree is irrelevant to the point of the picture. It's two people who have access to apples. One person has, and that one person is on a side that benefits them, the other person is not. It doesn't, the owner of the apple tree is not part of that conversation.
It's not the owner portion, it's the who put in the effort. A lot of people are disenfranchised and say that they're poor and stay this way, and they blame it on race. In reality, a lot of it is just simple, pure laziness. I'm white. I see more lazy white people here than I've seen anything else. I've seen more disenfranchised white people than anybody else. I'm not gonna say that they're disenfranchised because they're white. I'm gonna say it's because they don't know. If you go to a gym, 10 of us go to a gym, we're all overweight. We go to a gym and 3 people don't lose any weight. Is it the gym's fault? No, it's an individual. There could be health reasons, there could be medical, there could be laziness, there could be time constraints, there could be children. There's so many avenues, but we don't want to talk about the avenues of things that are starting to disenfranchise people. We want to group them all together.
And I don't think I think I said this from the beginning, we're speaking a lot of the same language, we're just saying it differently. I don't think anyone's arguing that there's folks that are lazy and can't provide for themselves and take advantage of that. There's that happens everywhere. But for marginalized folks who are not lazy and who do want to make a better life for themselves and provide for their families and all of these things, it's those systems and those hardships and things that we're talking about with equity. It's not this other group that you're talking about. I hear you. It's just not the point.
What systems? That's what I want to know. We need to put a finite label on these systems. Are we talking banking? Are we talking agriculture? Are we talking industry? Are we talking financial? Like, what are we actually talking about that hinders? Are we talking available access to healthcare? Are we talking about jobs? What are we talking about? What is so disenfranchised that people are left marginalized? That's the part that we need to work on, because you have all these people that are marginalized and disenfranchised. Let's integrate them into the system. Let's sit down and talk and say, hey, these are the things that we see inaccuracies in. This is the things that we see total BS in. Where's that discussion?
After our resolution is written, as I understand
We
it.
haven't done that work yet.
We haven't yet. That's
You know, I
not,
mean, I can give you examples, but they're not examples necessarily of
I don't
Sonora.
mean to
but I can
to
certainly
demean
give
what
you
you're saying
examples.
either Darren, I completely hear you, but I do feel like we had this exact discussion meeting before last when we sort of prioritized our path moving forward. And the first thing we decided to do was to draft the resolution, set those standards, and then explore.
Understandable. Today was discuss the workshop and the things that I got from it. I'm going for that. So some of the things that you're talking about now. So the resolution is words on paper. There's no action about it that actually solves an issue. Now, I get that we could move to an action after it's done, but we're not talking about the systems that I want to put in here and say, hey, the police department is one of the problems. Maybe we need to address that in the resolution, maybe that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is no one's had that hard conversation to really look and say, these are what we see. I prefer to hear from Mercedes. I guess she's not here to hear the disenfranchised thing.
So, Councilmember
Sure.
Such, if I may,
Yeah,
just to add
please.
a little bit of point of clarification and not to get into the actual discussion, but just to help. So the resolution, Darren, that the council has asked the committee to write sets the policy of where the council wants the city to be. Once that resolution is written and adopted, then you can dive into the policies of the city to ensure that those policies reflect what that resolution sets. So the committee, as it stands within the city of Sonora, can only address those systems in which the city of Sonora has access to address. We can't look beyond systems outside of city realm. So we
Banking
can-
systems, access to healthcare, you mentioned, that's
We
something that's
can't
outside, way outside the scope of what.
I
this-
understand
So I
that.
just
Mine
want-
was based on just what we saw there. We
Yeah,
talked about the resolution and the
So the-
time frame, so that's why I went to the
so the
resolution.
resolution has to be set first because that sets a policy. So that sets where the council wants to be.
I understand that.
Once you set that, then the committee can look at administrative personnel policies to ensure that those policies are reflective in which the resolution has set its guidance or set its mandate.
I get you
if
the
will.
overall, when we talk about a certain topic, that's where my finite point will go every time. So if we say something about the Giants, I'm gonna go to that every time. If we say something about football, I'm gonna go to that. When she said the resolution, that's why I go resolution. I get the whole process of the resolution and what it is. Mine is going back to this workshop. My workshop is a lot of questions that people had. I didn't even get through half of it. Social media.
May I make a comment on the workshop?
Please.
Please.
Okay, thank you. So there was something that happened that was of concern to me because I believe that people of different politics and different backgrounds can come together and do some good. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And just so you know, I don't know what world you live in, but this whole thing about the gender pronouns, this is new to me. I literally just found out about this a month ago, that people will pick this and they'll have it on their Twitter thing where it says he and she and that whatever that like, so that's new to me. I just found out about this. So when I was asked, what's your gender pronoun? I'm cycling through my brain thinking, well, I don't even know the right terminology here. I don't even know how to articulate this. So like many others, I said traditional, and that was said on purpose because it's been used for hundreds of years in this country. So that seems like accurate terminology. But I think what was concerning to me was that there is a belief that we're gonna extend each other respect. And so if you want to be addressed in a certain way, I'm going to respect that. But I think it needs to go both ways. And so if I use the word traditional, then that needs to be respected as well. Because what happens is when we don't have that level of respect, it just polarizes us and we go back to our camps and we say, okay, it's obvious you're over there and I'm over here. So I think, and it wasn't a member of this committee, but I just think we need to be careful. If we have a standard of respect, it has to go both ways, even if you don't like what it is. The other thing was, I'm not saying that this was an accusation. It might have been hinted at an accusation as far as the way certain members of the committee chose the next person. And as I think I mentioned, I'm being filmed. I know it's being recorded. There's 60 members of the community watching. And suddenly I have to name someone else and I'm on the spot. My brain is cycling through. I can't even remember who's been named and who hasn't been. I look up on my screen and there is Darren's name. So I picked him next, but it was kind of hinted that maybe this came from misogyny or patriarchy or something like that I didn't choose one of the women. But I think that's also unfair too. And that just breaks down trust and teamwork because it's the assumption that if I pick someone, it must have been for some underhanded reason. Now, I'm not saying there was an accusation. If there wasn't, then I will rescind my words and I apologize. I just want us to be able to work together as a team. And I think that we just should be careful to extend respect both directions. That's all.
I just have a question because both, Nathan, because both you and Darren have brought this up. Who talked about traditional pronouns?
Pablo.
Oh, so it wasn't the
It was a member
facilitator.
of the public.
It was a member of the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah.
Okay. And
That's one of my big ones is because he has an opinion, he so easily could be offended. Now, I don't know what he identifies as and maybe what we're saying is offensive, but it doesn't go the other way. Just like Nathan said, everyone's so worried about being offended. They're not worrying about doing the offending. Him telling me what I have to think or say or marginalize or non-marginalize someone, that's wrong.
Well, the other thing too is after Pablo made a comment about using the word traditional pronouns, a bunch of people on the chat exploded expressing support of him. And I don't know how many, but it was like 4 or 5.
Yep.
And just, I'm sorry to interject again, is we generally don't use chats because that the chat feature is from a Brown Act governed committee. You need the ability to ensure that public comment is done in a way that is overseen by the Brown Act. We had put that chat feature on simply because the consultant had asked us to, so that she could poll members. But that chat feature will not be again able to be utilized just because it adds for the disrespectfulness and not for the ability to call people through in a Brown Act governed manner.
right. I also just didn't read it because I thought it was really distracting and there were all these side conversations going on.
Exactly.
I read it, but it's
Yeah.
not even worth addressing. I think whatever was said there is
Exactly.
not,
Yeah.
people say whatever you want.
Nathan, I just want to thank you. I know that this conversation, all of the conversations we have are really hard. And just like you, I have many friends and even family members I know who are saying exactly what you just said. There are new experiences and new terminology that is starting to be used more frequently. We have to be kind with each other when we're trying to understand each other. And I I think back to when we wrote our purpose statement for this committee, we agreed to one another that we would have this safe space to be able to ask the questions, to be able to learn and really be able to understand. And I feel like that's exactly what just happened, which is kind of cool. And the workshop itself, while there's lots of different opinions on it, it's sort of opened the kind of paved the way for this, I think, microcosm of the bigger picture. It's having us just think and start to talk with one another about it. And I completely agree with you, Nathan, because I feel this all the time being on camera and this being recorded and public. We don't want to make a misstep, right? And it's really hard to be vulnerable and say when we don't know things or say when we don't know how to deal with a certain situation. But I just really admire your courage to be that vulnerable, because I think that you're speaking for a lot of people who feel the same way you do. I just that this exact topic was a benefit, I think, of the workshop. Just that reminder that, hey guys, there's things that experiences and topics that we all don't understand. And in thinking about going kind of both ways, I'm sure that on a even a smaller level, it kind of also brought to light that the LGBTQ community, that it's something that they're really passionate about. And so to kind of to recognize that and to acknowledge that, I think is important too. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, I just thought that the dialogue at the end was just really nice. It's hard to have these conversations, and some of them are awkward, and for some people, some of them are painful. But I'm happy that we're having them. And I think that we are all setting an example. While we can't control what the public says and what the public comment will be, I think within our committee, we can agree to have a safe space with one another and ask questions without feeling like we're going to be attacked if we don't understand. And in that regard, we're setting an example for the rest of our community, and I hope they follow suit as well. The conversation at the end, I ran into Mayor Hawkins last week, and I said to him that the end conversation with our community involvement felt like old Sonora to me before we had this big division. It felt just very lovely and loving. And I feel like it's that kind of common ground where we're being vulnerable with one another. No one knows all the answers, but we're recognizing each other's pain and experiences is going to be at the heart of how we start to come together again. And I really appreciated that we touched on that at the end of the workshop.
I mean, I agree. I think the end of the workshop was the heart of the workshop.
I agree with that as well. I think there's more done in the comment portion of that and talking amongst ourselves than the entire video itself.
Right. But sometimes it takes a workshop to stimulate that. I mean, I don't think the workshop was without any benefit personally, but
I will say I did
there were
learn
some
stuff.
disappointments.
There was some stuff on there. I'm not gonna say it was completely absolute waste of time, because there's stuff that I did take away from that was really good, that I have applied to some of my stuff in here that is positive when we come into different topics and stuff later that we can talk about for sure. Like I've always said, any discussion's a good discussion. It's just got to be a little bit better than an animated series, you know. It was real rough for me on that one. I think I was with it. Now, a lot of the people texting me, a lot of the people talking to me, obviously don't want to talk, can't talk, anything like that. So they feel comfortable voicing their concerns. I will be that voice. I don't care. If I offend somebody, good, it's somebody else's question. And I can say it was somebody else's question or someone else's point. If it's my question, I will wear my billboard of being the a-hole, no problem. I have no problems with that. But a lot of people, multiple people, were texting in the middle of that going, are you serious? And it's okay. Well, we definitely need to address some of that that questioning. That's some of this that's in here. The conversation at the end, 100%. Me and Nikki had lunch with Mark. We are all more commonly invested in this than most people understand. Most people think it's a side, and a lot of people play that game of the side, say one thing, do another. That's the part of me I think that most of you probably understand is I'm a straight shooter. There's no BS when it comes to me. So when I bring these points up, please believe that it's not a frustration on my part, because if I'm frustrated with you, I'll call you. I'll call any one of you. I don't care. And I'll voice my concerns, my gripes, all my stuff. When it's somebody else that's in the public comments, that's sitting there right now, that has these concerns, I want to be able to bring them up, and I want to be able to talk about them in a limelight where they can hear good answers. With what they do, I don't think so. I totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, on Zoom, you can be anonymous, you don't have to put your name.
And I
Fair
think
enough.
that there's, for a myriad of reasons, why the public doesn't participate. I think the workshop was a great example of how much participation we can get when the meetings are started later. And I think the timing of it as well keeps people from attending.
That has been one of my constant gripes,
Yeah.
is if we're really gonna do something 1 hour every other week. I agree with, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name that was on here. You're 100% correct. I've been pushing about better timing, better cooperation. How do we get more people involved? And that definitely did it. I'll give you that. There definitely was a lot of people on there. But then what do we disenfranchise them about family time, taking their times off to do camera stuff? I'm all for what we have later on in the meeting, moving this to a group scenario where there's more people that are actually disenfranchised that can participate.
Well, and that kind of leads to my discussion on item 3, which we probably would not get to because we only got 20 minutes left. But I think we can have a much better free flowing exchange of information by not having the tenets of being a government committee and having to worry about Brown Act issues.
I'm with you. We don't vote on anything that has anything to do with a monetary vote. What we do is we vote
I
on things
just-
to
But
bring to
we're
the city
going off
council.
You were going
But-
off subject.
but
We
we're
gotta
going-
add. public
I'm going
comment.
off. So
Sorry, go ahead.
we
I know,
need to
we'll
get
move
back to
into
the
that.
workshop. Real
Copy.
briefly before I think we probably need to go to the public comment. Yeah, I think the workshop could have been conducted in a much better fashion. I was a little disappointed. But I didn't, you mentioned the tree thing. I didn't see anything about ownership of the tree or, I think there's things that people read things into. And I think most people didn't see it that way. They just seeing that it was just equal opportunity for one, try to get the other person equal opportunity, equal chance at the tree. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. But it's happened. We're past it now, and we need to move forward and push forward.
And I agree with most things.
Can you hear Nathan?
No, I couldn't hear that.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to turn on no, sorry. I think it's just a visual for inequity, and that's all it was talking about. It wasn't talking about people getting free apples that someone else grew.
I'm with you. I think the fence line, dead on equality, inequality.
It's the
all that.
same though. I mean, it's just a different.
Well,
visual.
there's still a fence. So, I mean, in the reality of thinking, that's a lot easier of thought process than trying to figure out the apple one to me. The fence line is why is there a fence in the first place?
Yeah. But I do think that the success of the workshop was the public discussion afterwards, and in hindsight, I'm sorry I didn't open it up to that earlier. But I was kind of, hindsight's not really that valuable, but because really that's, and I think we all want that public engagement. And that was just, I thought, very rich and helpful. And it ended on a really high note, I thought, because of that.
The internet went off at my house, so he's not on.
I just would like to remind the committee that we have 20 minutes left
Yeah.
and we still
So,
haven't taken public comment on this item.
may I have public comment on the workshop?
You have one public comment from Karen Wood.
Karen?
You're
You want-
muted,
hold on.
Karen. There you go.
Okay, sorry. This conversation has been very unsettling to listen to, and I'm going to try to articulate that in regards to the workshop. I was pleased in the workshop that we defined equity and equality, and that committee member Duez was even able to identify that there are fences and we need to tear them down. And I was excited after that, thinking this is really clearly the role of the Social Equity Committee, is to identify the fences in Tuolumne County and tear them down. And yet listening to this, the last 30 minutes, you guys threw up a ton of fences. First of all, identifying human beings as illegal, using that kind of language is so disrespectful. And that is one of the fences in Tuolumne County, is that we don't honor all humanity. Talking about playing a race card and a poverty card, and saying that people are lazy who play that. My Black son, who's been pulled over by the police 15 times and never ticketed in this county, he's not playing a race card. He is being racially profiled. That is a wall, a fence that needs to be torn down. And I am working with police on that, but this is something the committee should support. That kind of language is unacceptable. For Nathan and Darren to feel uncomfortable because Pablo very respectfully spoke about how the word traditional made him feel. He shared his opinion. And you guys are upset as white men that your opinion wasn't respected. And then you criticize the community and go out and say, because we celebrated Pablo expressing his opinion, which was very difficult to express for people that are marginalized, to be able to express their opinion, and then to have most people in this room talk about public comment. We were excluded from the workshop. And the only place that we had avenue was through chat, and you're all just blowing it off and acting like it was disrespectful. You're closing out the community. The fences are right here in this room, in your language, in your uncomfortableness around talking about issues, and it's frustrating. And we need to, as Nikki was saying, get some common language in getting this resolution made. But there needs to be some education, and some of it is baby education, that we don't call people illegal, and that everybody has a right to their opinion, not just the people on the committee who felt uncomfortable. And so I agree, Nathan, that absolutely you're just learning about it, and that's okay. But Pablo needs to be able to share how it makes him feel. He needs a space to have his voice heard also. And we supported him in that on the chat, and then we get blown off. So there are a lot of fences in this community that people don't want to see, and they're being reinforced in this meeting right now. And that's really frustrating. And yes, I'm struggling with it. The comment about people of color playing the race card is just, I mean, all of this is unacceptable. And so there is a whole lot more education that needs to happen so that people coming to this meeting can actually feel safe enough to speak.
Karen, you have 30 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Laura?
The next public comment is Nate Smith.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, I don't have video. I don't have my camera hooked up. My name's Nate Smith. I've been listening to everything that's been going on. You might know me as Just Brothers Nate Smith. I was the one that had that viral video where I was being harassed by Sonora PD several years ago. I'm a white male. to me, my opinion, it's not an issue of race in this county. It's an issue of law enforcement in general. They harass everybody. They don't just harass Black people. They harass white people. They harass bikers. They harass everybody. Now I'm going to refer to the Constitution, Section 1, Amendment 14. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge or privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the ACLU is actually going after Tuolumne County for them trying to, let's see, it's right here. The ACLU is going after Tuolumne County because of the fact that they they make you pay bail before you can even defend your ticket. They're actually circumventing the due process of law in the state of California. So the issue isn't necessarily race, because I've had issues with law enforcement over and over and over and over and over. And what I see as the biggest issue going on within this whole community is people are identifying problems associating with race. It's not race, it's a people problem. People just need to respect each other, whether they're Black, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're white. It makes no difference. It makes no difference. And it doesn't make any difference in this county. So people that are putting like cops are harassing me because I'm Black, you're creating a race problem because you're now categorizing it as a problem against Black people. Well, as Morgan Freeman said, how do you get rid of race? Stop talking about it. The whole Black History Month. Why are you segregating yourself? Don't segregate yourself. Black history is American history, plain and simple. We're all Americans here. And if we're not Americans, then we're striving to become Americans. We're all American. We all need to treat each other equal, just as our forefathers said in the Constitution.
Can you move the cursor, Chris, so I can see who the next person is? And the next public comment is coming from Terry Alford.
I just wanted to comment that I thought the workshop was very valuable. And whether, not related necessarily to content, I think the process, I think we had to start somewhere. And I see this workshop as just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg. But one workshop is not going to meet the needs of everyone in this community. And I would like to see a workshop where the community can have more involvement. I was surprised to see it be part of the Brown Act. And I would really encourage that. And I don't, I speak Spanish, I'm bilingual, and I work with Spanish-speaking families in the Latinx community. I'm here in Tuolumne County, and I hear stories of racism and discrimination all the time. I mean, it's there, and I appreciate what Karen shared about being able to tear down the fences, but I think the fences are here right now. So I agree with that, but I think the importance is that we just continue to do the work, we continue to do our own education. I think the council members have also a responsibility to kind of, it's great that it brought up some questions. So now go, search that out and try to find those answers for yourselves and the community as well. So that's what I wanted to share. I would like to see more workshops. I think that was just the beginning.
Thanks, Terry.
So I just want to remind the committee that because this is a Brown Act governed committee, all workshops would be Brown Act governed.
No more hands.
Are there any other hands?
I don't see any other public comments at this time.
I would like to say
Wait,
the terminology illegal was not my terminology. I actually preferred migrant. I have it written down here, but that wasn't his terminology. That was what he wanted being said.
There are different ways to say it.
I'm
but-
100% with you. That was his words. I'm not going to deviate from what he wants to say.
Okay, so discussion about a possible resolution. On
Pass.
there were a couple resolutions that were included in the packet. One was one that I found from Pacific Grove. One was one that I found from Nevada City. Mary Rose included a sample equity resolution that is pretty, it's a really good just sort of template for us to use if we choose. And then also the two resolutions that were written by council members last July. So what I thought maybe, I mean, I think this is a bigger conversation certainly than we can have today, but I thought maybe if we could all go home and just take the, where, you know, and resolutions have this format where you say, or it's whereas, and now therefore, but if we could take whatever we are reading in these resolutions that we like, and also I would suggest that we also use our purpose statement and our vision and mission statements, because I think that we as a group came up with language that also would be helpful for these resolutions. And also, you know, today, or actually that's not true, yesterday I just Googled city resolutions on equity. And I mean, they're all over the place. This has become pretty mainstream stuff. And you know, I just would invite everyone to do that and just see if there are things that we're not, you know, that we're not capturing here. Because I mean, I really feel like this resolution is this is why this committee was founded, and I just feel like we need to get this right. And just one short thing, I really loved the beginning of the resolution from Nevada City.
I am 100% with you. All the meat in Nevada City sounds really good compared to our county, our culture, our people. That's everyone here. I liked that one, that whole one. It's not even bad all the way down.
Yeah, you know, I just loved how it started, but I liked the whole thing. But I think there were other ones that had you know, good points as well. But I just would ask, perhaps if we could all just take this as a homework assignment and just go home and just sort of just write down a whole lot more than you think it needs, just so we can then kind of bring it back next time and really just have that as our conversation.
Do you know why the Nevada City one had a lot of yellow? Is that just happen how we got it, or?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, the highlighting.
why
Was there
is it so-
yellow? Was there?
That was
So-
yellow.
There was
and
some
There's a
that were
lot of
highlights.
highlighting.
Did I do that ahead before I gave it to you? I'm
Yeah.
sorry that I didn't. I'm sorry. I just was doing that as I was reading it. It has a lot more yellow now, if that helps. Anyhow, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to push my opinion there.
Yeah, I think it would also be of us to mention to the public that these documents are on the social equity website, and I would love to hear public comment on thoughts and interaction on this. I'm sure it'll be agendized at our next meeting, but I would love to invite the public to go to the website, read these documents as we are over the next 2 weeks, and share your input as well.
And also just to maybe partially just to see that we actually have made some progress, to read the two original resolutions. They're not quite as bad as I thought they were, but it's not what I would write today.
Some of the other ones I saw, you're 100%. I think your guys's were way better than a couple of them.
Anyhow, any other thoughts about how to do this? And what I did is I just sort of went through these resolutions and just numbered everything so that when we come back and talk, we can just refer to, you know, City of Pacific Grove resolution 3, number 3, 5, and 7 or something like that. It just might make it easier to. Now, the other thing that I was wondering about is do we want to have them on a table for next time, in which case you kind of have to, you know, send your stuff in within the next week.
Oh, like a drop.
Like we did last time.
Yeah, I just thought that was a helpful way to kind of review.
That might be,
It might be a big
that might
task.
be a lot with as many.
I got 2 weeks, right? I got to find some time.
Well, just think about it. I can create a table pretty easily, but you can't send them to me. You have to send them to Mary Rose, and then you can send them to me.
I'm going to apologize
No.
now
To
for.
put it, I mean,
How did we
you
do it?
could. I honestly think that you should do it in the midst of the meeting
Mhm.
to make sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and doing
Okay.
any type of serial speaking as far as policy.
And I feel like a lot of this, we don't have, since we don't have the time today, before we actually start drafting,
We should discuss them.
yeah,
Whiteboard
would
it
probably
then.
be a discussion, a pretty big discussion on some points. So I like the idea of maybe bringing our points back, working through it together and talking,
Okay.
hearing from the public too.
Okay. Does that sound good? Jim?
Yeah, we should hear from the public though now,
Does-
since
Yeah.
it's agendaed.
Just, does Nathan have any other questions? 'Cause
Oh,
I know
yeah,
you-
Nathan.
Nathan, do you have any
Where are
thoughts
you?
about resolution?
No, I think I like what I'm hearing.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So now. we'll
Now,
entertain-
any public comment
So you,
about how we are going to move forward in writing a resolution?
you have one member of the public, and that is Karen Wood with her hand raised.
Karen?
Thank you. I just, in writing a resolution condemning racism, acknowledges that racism actually exists. And I continually hear people from the public and some of our elected officials and committee members try to deny that racism exists. And I support us writing a resolution condemning racism because it does exist. It exists in this county. People are hurt by it and impacted by it, and not talking about it is what we did after the civil rights movement. As a white society, we pretended it didn't exist, but it does exist and people are being hurt by it. So I appreciate your efforts in writing a resolution condemning racism because that actually acknowledges that it exists. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, do we have any other public comments on this item? I don't see any other hands raised. Councilmember Such.
Okay. So we have 4 minutes. Discussion and possible action to moving the Social Equity Committee from a city sanctioned committee to a community-owned committee. I didn't realize this said possible action. I thought it was just a discussion. But
We can't take action unless we actually say possible action.
okay,
So I have to agenda.
so that just allows us to take action. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I've been calling from day one for this group to be open and more, and I think with how the rules fall with 2 city council members on it, it's been a situation where it has to be that way. My understanding is from looking into this, if one of you steps down, this would go to a different kind of subcommittee or something where it wouldn't be under the Brown Act.
No, that's
No, so we would actually have to just disband the whole thing as a committee and move it to a group.
The council has to take official action. Right now, the way it is set up through the city is that it is a standing committee. For it to be an ad hoc committee, it would only be allowed to have 2 council members on it, providing discussion amongst themselves to bring forth an action on a short-term basis for a specific purpose. Because this committee expanded to include additional members and it has no finite date to be finalized, it is what we call a standing committee of the city. And because of that, that is Brown Act governed. Ad hoc committees are not Brown Act governed. So
Copy.
as it stands right now within the city of Sonora, it is a Brown Act governed committee, which comes with all the rules and responsibility of the Brown Act. So the
Could we-
council would have to take action to be able to dissolve the standing committee.
Gotcha. As this group proceeds, could we add members to it if it went to a group other than a committee?
The council would have to determine that.
So the committee, the group itself couldn't say we want to do, like after this, let's say that they did take
Absolutely
that.
not. The city
Okay.
council is the only body
Add.
that creates a legislative body.
Gotcha.
I just have a few things to say about this. One, with the Brown Act, and I certainly feel restricted by the Brown Act. I certainly felt the workshop was restricted by the Brown Act. But frankly, we live in the Brown Act. I mean, Jim and I live in the Brown Act every day in city council, and we seem to be able to do it. I mean, I don't know what the big deal is here. I mean, we are in committees all the time that are Brown Act governed, and it's not that big of a
Well,
deal.
didn't we mention there was, the people were having a lack of
Timing.
accessibility because they couldn't directly engage in the workshop
In the workshop. No, workshop, I
because it was
get it.
Brown Act. Yeah.
Right.
Time frame too, if it's not one of the committee ones that has to be videotaped and everything, and we could put a timestamp where we want on it instead of at 6 or 7 o'clock at night where everyone's getting off work, they're done feeding their families, they're done doing their things, they can participate a lot more. Whereas at 4 o'clock, people are scrambling to get home for work. People are trying to get everything done so they can get on here and just have a minuscule minute to be able to say something.
I actually think this committee would, I think this committee has a stature it wouldn't have if it were not a city committee. People want to partner with us who might not want to partner with us. I mean, I think it does bring a certain priority to this committee, and I think cities all over the state and country are creating equity committees. It's not that. I mean, it seems like we should be able to figure it out and do it well.
Councilmember Sach, I just want to remind you that it's 5 o'clock
Okay.
and we need to take public comment
So
because I planning commission.
any real quick comments?
I just have one quick comment. I will be honest, I was saddened to see this on the agenda. We were appointed to this committee to draft a resolution, and talking about dissolving this committee before we've even completed the charge at hand seems entirely premature. I also want to be very mindful to people of color who are listening to this conversation, because it feels once again a little bit like we're being pushed out, frankly. This is a heartbreaker for me, and we can do better. And I think we need to get through our charge before we talk about pushing this away.
I totally agree.
My comment, I'm gonna just type in, I know we have time.
I'm sorry, I have to close
Open
this
it to
meeting
public
because
comment.
I've got a planning commission meeting and I've got to sanitize. We've
It
got to
was
open
the-
up for public
Okay.
comment. at
In
this
and
time.
out learning of what it would do to cancel, not that I'm on board. I'm actually on the fence of both.
Is there any public comment about how this committee is comprised?
There is one public comment, Councilmember Sach, and that's Karen
Okay.
Wood. Oh, there's two.
Karen?
Thank you. Where I absolutely agree with Nikki and Colleen that I think this needs to stay under the authority of our elected officials. And I don't know the rules. I really feel this committee should be held under both the Board of Supervisors and City Council. And I don't know if that's ever been done, but if there was a way for us to be creative to create a joint committee, because where this committee has opened, yes, up to the full community, the Board of Supervisors are not invested in this and, participating. And so I think all elected officials, this should somehow fall under them, considering the CDC has declared racism as a public health concern. This is not something that should be stepped away from our elected officials that are supposed to be taking care of our community. I just would love to find a way to bridge it between both. And I don't know if that's possible, but that's just my thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
You have also public comment from Megan Mills.
Megan.
Just very quickly, I also support keeping this committee as a standing committee of the city council.
Thank you. Thanks.
And at this time, Councilmember Sach and Councilmember Garaventa, I do not see any additional comments.
Okay, Social Equity Committee is complete for today. Thank you. Thanks everyone from the public also.